I am a pedophile under arrest. Hello everyone. It's time to make a thread about my mental illness. I'm a pedophile. I'll make it clear right away that I've never touched children. The reason for this thread is that I want to show you that many pedophiles are suffering people, not the maniacs of the news headlines. My diagnosis is hell. We are not supported, and we have no one to turn to for help. I am sure that among the users of this site, there are many people with the same diagnosis, as well as those who have become their victims. Let's discuss the problem from both sides. What were you arrested for? How did you become a pedophile? Did you decide to turn yourself into the cops because you were afraid you might hurt someone? Hi, interesting questions. I was arrested for one photo I downloaded. I was identified by my IP address. I am not its creator, and I have not been involved in its distribution. I realized my diagnosis in my teenage years. At first, it seemed to me that I was just attracted to people my age. But then I got older and realized that I was not quite normal. No, I didn't turn myself into the police. I would never do that. To admit that you are a pedophile is to voluntarily expel yourself from society. I would have lost my job immediately, and I'm sure I'll never touch a child. Have you already served time? Is it really as hard for pedophiles in prison as it is shown in the movies? I'm still waiting for the hearing. Since I'm not a rapist, it's unlikely whether I will be imprisoned for the first offense. But if they put me in jail, I'll definitely come up with another story for myself. As far as I know, in our country, it is forbidden for the police to disclose what article you are in prison for. We have quite civilized prisons. You say you're not hurting children, but isn't watching child porn hurting them? By watching such content, you create demand. This means that more and more children are becoming victims of this industry because of people like you. I'm not going to lie, you're right. But it is important to note one point. Due to the unusual ways in which this content is distributed, the person who produces it does not receive any feedback, or it is very limited. So it is impossible to say for sure how many people have viewed the photo video. That's why people like me don't have much influence on production. But I get it, it's not much of an excuse. Interesting. I hope you can handle all this hate pouring in your direction. By the way, I recently read that there was one case where a guy was found to have a brain tumor that turned him into a pedophile. And it happened to him twice. It's a very rare case. I have a question. Would you rather stay yourself or become ordinary? I've heard about this guy. Pedophilia is often associated with damage to the frontal lobe. I had stitches on my forehead at birth, and sometimes I suspect that this may be related to my diagnosis. If it were possible to have brain surgery that would fix everything, then I would definitely agree to it. But I will never agree to do something with my balls. Unfortunately, this is a sexual orientation, and for such things we don't know how to influence yet. It would be great if we could get some kind of psychological help and moral support first. Have you ever thought about castration? Did not have. This is too drastic a decision. I want to have my own children, and I believe that I can remain a sexually active member of society. Do you feel attracted to people your own age? Yes. I'm currently dating a girl in her 20s. I went through something really heavy from ages 6 to 9, so I want to say thank you for being honest about what happened. I've heard it's rare. Only about 2 to 5% of people who've done something like that actually own up to it. That takes a lot of courage. I'm curious. Have you opened up to your family about it? How did they take it? Also, do you ever turn to things like alcohol or other stuff to cope, or do you try to steer clear to keep things under control? I know substances can sometimes make things messier, but I get it if you're just trying to ease the pain. Wishing you all the best. God, this is terrible. I don't have enough words to describe how sorry I am that this happened to you. It's good that you got out of this situation. Yes, my family knows. When I was arrested, they were searched too. To be honest, I lied to them. I said that I accidentally downloaded that file, although this is not entirely true. I knew that if Mom found out the truth, she would be very disappointed in me, although she wouldn't stop loving me. Sometimes I allow myself to drink or smoke herbs, but not too often. Grass is great for my anxiety. I have strong enough willpower to control myself when I'm drunk. How can parents understand that their child is a pedophile? How can a wife understand that her husband is a pedophile? If it turns out that someone in my family is a pedophile, what should I do about it? Do you discuss these issues with your family? This is not an easy question because if your child has other people's baby photos, then it can be regarded as something that he just likes. People about his age. The very fact of having such photos does not indicate anything. I've always tried very hard to cover every trace. I was constantly cleaning my laptop so that others couldn't find anything. Although now teenagers watch porn mostly through phones, I think parents should check their children's search history and explain to them that watching porn is okay. But it's also important to tell them about the existence of child porn and explain why it's bad. If someone you know turns out to be a pedophile, then act as if nothing has changed. Because his life is not sugar, believe me. But if he was arrested, it was all the more so because he no longer poses a threat to society. A pedophile is a living person who often leads an endless battle with himself. As a child, I was the victim of several people who used me for all sorts of photos, videos. The consequences of this abuse haunt me to this day because people continue to watch these videos. I suffer from this every day. The fact that you open videos like this directly harms me. You're looking at me without my consent and condoning violence. I am so sorry. What you've been through is terrible. I'm trying to understand your problem and respect you for being aware of it, but I don't get it. If you sympathize with the victims of child pornography, then why do you keep watching it? Your answer about the fact that your viewing has no effect on demand, in my opinion, is complete nonsense. You're implying that you take porn from third parties, but they buy it for money and resell it to people like you. That's how demand is born. Because it's an obsession. I'm not saying it's okay to watch this kind of content. I both love and hate looking at these photos. I'm like a heroin addict who knows that heroin is bad but keeps shooting. You said you would never give in to your desires. But what do you think is the difference between a person who watches child pornography and a person who directly harasses children? I think that such people suffer not only from pedophilia, but also from a number of other cognitive disorders that normalize violence and dull empathy for the child. The one who gets down to business is unlikely to realize all the harm he causes. Another problem is that there are several groups on the darknet in which people incite each other to action and distribute violent content. Is the darknet being tracked somehow? If you're found guilty, maybe you can turn these people in to cut your sentence. From what I've heard, tracking someone on the darknet is really tough. But the FBI and other groups are out there setting traps. Like, I read they recently took over a big site and spent a couple of weeks gathering info on its visitors. As for me, I'm probably looking at probation, so there's no way to speed that up. But honestly, I'd be the first to turn in anyone who hurts a kid. It makes me so angry that there's still this whole industry out there abusing children. I wish child exploitation didn't even exist. How deep is such adult content buried on the internet? How much I know Google and other search engines have now learned how to filter child porn sites well. Tell me about this dark side of the internet. You don't just run into that stuff by mistake, but if you know how to navigate the darknet or use torrents, it's pretty easy to come across. It started for me with anime websites, just clicking around. Then I found places like 4chan, where people posted pictures of young models. I'd see folks sharing explicit stuff through apps or email, but I stayed away from that. The most I did was grab some image sets from kids' TV shows, though sometimes they'd have stuff that felt way too grown up. After a while, I checked out Omegle. People there would trade secret phrases to get links to Dropbox or Imgur with illegal content. I also saw some Russian sites that weren't well monitored, full of explicit photos. Eventually, I ended up on the darknet. Everything's right there, super easy to find with one click. But you've got to watch out. There's some really disturbing things you don't want to mess with. Honestly, the internet can be a wild place. And from what I've noticed, there are probably more people dealing with these kinds of struggles than we think. Thanks for this thread. I have a couple of questions. First of all, do you have any other mental illnesses? Did you try to talk to a psychiatrist about your problem before your arrest? Or were you afraid of the consequences? And if he did, what did he say? Hi? Yes, I have dyspraxia, but it has nothing to do with the main problem, and depression, which is partly caused by my main problem. I talked to a specialist about depression, but I deliberately chose my words so that he wouldn't guess what I really care about. I was afraid of being arrested and labeled for life. Once I tried contacting a charity that deals with similar issues, but it seems that they are only interested in cases where someone has already crippled a child's life. So you're under arrest. Do they provide you with any kind of psychological help? I do not know where you are from, but in my country, pedophiles go through therapy, which teaches them to control their illness and not commit a crime. Hi, after my arrest, a nurse was sent to me to make sure that I was not going to commit suicide, and she gave me a support number where I could call, but I haven't called there yet, because firstly, I have big problems with anxiety, and secondly, I've always been hiding from people, and I'm not used to talking about my problem yet. But, by the way, one day I did try to call an organization that supposedly helps people like me, but their help was absolutely useless. We exchanged a few emails, and that was the end of it. Apparently, they decided that I did not pose a threat to society. Thanks a lot for watching. In the comments, I suggest you write what you think about this problem.